Over 2 decades ago, an Amtrak train derailed in the middle of the Arizona desert, and investigators found it had been sabotaged. But who did it and why? That remains unsolved tonight.
Our Brianna Whitney tracked down people who were involved and never before seen evidence in tonight's True Crime Arizona.
It was about 1:30 in the morning, and I was laying on a couple seats. It was like pitch black out there, so the only light there was the moon, and if I remember correctly, it was a full moon. We just came to a real, quick. I mean, it was like a jolt, hear all the crashing, and it threw me to the floor.
October 5th, 1995, the Sunset Limited Amtrak train was traveling along these tracks. 250 passengers in the middle of the Arizona desert. No electricity and no civilization in sight. Nobody knew where they were or what had just happened. And nobody knew they were now the victims of a calculated crime that would make headlines around the world.
I had just enough battery to make a call home. That's pretty much all I had.
Luann Zulawski had boarded the train in Texas, heading back home to LA when the train suddenly went off the tracks.
It felt almost like being shook to your feet by an earthquake.
And miles away, in the then small town of Buckeye, was Patricia Blurry, the lone emergency dispatcher that night.
It was a quiet night until Maricopa County Sheriff's Office came up on our radio.
Fire department? We have an emergency Amtrak train.
It was a nightmare because it was so far out in the middle of nowhere.
Tell me the milepost again. 847.0.
It would take hours to get emergency crews out to the remote location.
We called every ambulance company. We had to stage everybody all along the route to direct all the ambulances. We had to contact farmers that had road graders to grade the road out towards the railroad track, grade out an area for a trauma center.
With no GPS technology, she made a decision.
They're navigating all this in the dark.
Exactly. Yes, we had to get lighting out there.
Soon, the area was lit up in red and blue.
You could just hear the helicopters coming, and they were just one right after the other, and they were landing them. All the lights and the blinking lights from the sirens.
Luann's passenger car didn't have any major injuries, but just ahead, a grisly scene. Amtrak worker Mitchell Bates was killed, caught between the cars when they collapsed over the bridge. 75 others injured, 12 critically, with children on board.
A MASH evac zone is basically what it looked like.
Luann says that's when an engineer came running into their car.
They asked if anybody had a camera, and I said, yeah, I have a camera. He said, well, come with me, and he says, I need you to take a picture of this part of the track. And so we got down on our bellies, and I got my camera with the flash, and I took some pictures that they asked me to take, and it turned out that it was actually the point of derailment. So at that point, I kind of knew.
The Sunset Limited had been sabotaged.
In my 30 years in the FBI, the worst crime scene I ever saw.
Larry McCormick, now retired, was second in command at the FBI in Phoenix at the time and headed out to the scene as soon as headquarters called.
We are very confident and very sure that we will solve this crime.
I'd call it organized chaos because there were so many rescue people there. I'm amazed more people weren't killed, to be honest with you, looking at the scene.
The investigation began into who did this and why. And it didn't take long until the first clues were found.
Was there any leads at that point?
Well, they had found some notes that indicated it was a domestic terrorism type of case.
These 8x10 typewritten notes were found on the ground, held down by rocks, that said the group responsible for the crime were the Sons of Gestapo. And the reason why they did it was to retaliate against the FBI and ATF for their involvement in the 1993 Waco siege.
We are also seeking all information that anyone might have regarding the Sons of the Gestapo.
Who are the Sons of Gestapo?
The actual manifestos were signed by the Sons of Gestapo. However, to date, we still haven't been able to verify that they are an actual group.
Special Agent Michael Lum is on the FBI task force currently working the case.
Was it calling for retaliation against these agencies? Why would that involve the Amtrak train?
I don't know. They went after, it was a terrorist event. They went after civilians who were just going about their everyday life.
Do you think they wrote that to try to throw you off?
That's a very good possibility.
But those responsible didn't just sever the tracks.
They cut this electrical wiring and rewired it so the warning lights that would tell an engineer to stop the train because something was wrong never flashed. There was no way to see this coming.
Even had the engineer seen it at the last moment as he's going over it, he wouldn't have had time to actually stop.
Whoever did this had to have some sort of knowledge of the train tracks themselves.
I would think so, yes.
At this point, Pat is still trying to coordinate getting crews in and out of the scene.
You've got to make the phone calls, get the people the help that they need.
When she found out the train was deliberately sabotaged, it was an emotional blow.
Like, why would anybody want to hurt totally innocent people? You know, I mean, that's a sick person.
We are also seeking
Days later, investigators held a press conference. They had another lead.
This individual, we don't know whether it was male or female, was observed shortly after the derailment. One passenger, one employee of Amtrak observed this individual.
But they were running into one big challenge. There wasn't much evidence left at the scene from the perpetrators, and to this day, the FBI won't reveal much about what was out there.
I had read something about a pry bar or a crowbar being found at the scene and possibly missing from a volunteer fire department nearby. Is that credible?
There are a lot of rumors, and again, I don't want to get into those rumors because some of them actually could relate to do relate to the active investigation.
But Luann's 35mm camera answers my question loud and clear.
And here was a piece of metal that was left on, and I don't know if they had used that to pry something or what.
The once chaotic crime scene.
How you feeling? You okay now?
Now the center of a case gone quiet and cold. Larry fears after all these years, there may never be justice for Mitchell Bates and the injured passengers.
As time passes, it gets much more difficult to solve these cases. People's memories go, people die.
But the FBI says improved DNA and forensic technology could break the case wide open.
Can you confirm there are active leads right now?
There are active leads right now.
Michael says there were only 5 to 6 hours between the last train that successfully crossed that track and the sabotage of the Sunset Limited. This crime was planned by somebody who knew exactly what they were doing and where they would do it. And one question triggered a long, cautious pause at the FBI.
Do you believe it was some former disgruntled worker?
That's a detail I can't really get into right now.
Thousands of days have gone by and thousands of dollars remain unclaimed. For Luann, that fateful night in the train was eerie and unforgettable, and she believes eventually someone involved will fall off track and get a one-way ticket to prison.
It may not be in my lifetime, but somebody's going to say something. If they do find them, it's still murder.